Hi, this is Jason from Horrific Nightmares, and we all know what day it is. Slashback Saturday. Now, this week's theme is a slasher remake. Now, I will admit, I had a hard time with this. I like to pick movies that are not so much talked about as much as the mainstream films. Of course, Friday the 13th is my favorite franchise, so that was the first movie I thought of doing. But didn't want to go mainstream on this one. Wanted to talk about a movie that doesn't get talked about as much. And this is going to be a fairly controversial pick. Now, one of the rules in this was Joe said that if you consider it a slasher, it's a slasher. And while this movie is very much a cannibal movie, like one of those backwoods movies, it is a slasher as well. It very much plays out like a slasher. And the movie which I chose to review this week is 2001 Maniacs. Now, 2001 Maniacs is a 2005 film which runs approximately 87 minutes and is written and directed by Tim Sullivan. Now, the only thing I could really find on Tim Sullivan was 2001 Maniacs Field of Screams, which is the sequel to this, for the most part. Now, that stars Bill Moseley, and it's a lot like this film. Yeah, it's pretty much a lot like this film. I don't like it quite as much, but yeah. Now, this movie stars Robert Englund, Lynn Shay. Eli Roth has a very small part, and the funny part about it is that he plays the same part that he played in his own film, Cabin Fever, which is pretty cool. Travis Tritt, which I knew that was him. I had a feeling. I'm not a country music fan by any stretch, but I recognized him right away, and I was like, that really looks like him. And then, of course, when I looked up the information to do the review, that's who it was. And it also has Kane Hodder in a very small role. Guess what his name is? If you guessed Jason, you would be right. Now, this movie and me have a odd past. I'll get into that in a minute, but I'll give you a brief synopsis of the film. A bunch of college kids are on the road. They want to go to Daytona for spring break. They end up in Georgia, kind of lost, taking a shortcut like most horror movies. And they end up in a town from the Civil War, in where they get stalked, slashed, and eaten by the townspeople. That's basically the movie in a nutshell. Not really a spoiler, it's pretty much on the cover. You are what they eat. Now, like I said, this movie and I have a very checkered past. I was really excited to see this movie when it first came out, and I did. I rented it, and was a little less than impressed. I think it was because with Robert Englund in it, and I had heard that Kane Hodder had a small role in it, and I don't know, I was just really, really disappointed. I didn't expect it to be kind of a horror comedy silly movie. And I am ashamed to say, and this kind of plays into it a little bit, I am ashamed to say that I have never seen the original, the Herschel Gordon Lewis 2000 Maniacs original movie that this is loosely based on. So I wasn't really quite sure what to expect and wasn't that impressed. So later on, probably 2 or 3 years later, I caught it again when it was on cable and decided to give it another chance, kind of like the thing I used to do with Second Chance Sunday. And I actually fell in love with the movie. I kind of put away my expectations, didn't really remember much about it from the first time, and really, really enjoyed it. Now, I just got this DVD recently. I picked it up on one of my thrift store flea market hauls. I was really happy to find it because I hadn't seen it in quite some time. And watched it again, and it's one of those movies that to me just kind of gets better. It's a fun popcorn flick that you can kind of just sit back and goof on it. So, but yeah, the controversial part is I'm sure most people would consider this a cannibal film, and it is, but it also plays very much like a slasher, a silly slasher for the most part. And there's a lot in this movie that is just crazy and funny. So this is definitely a recommendation, and this is my remake slasher for the week. 2001 Maniacs. Definitely check this one out. Give it a chance. It's a little different than you might expect, but it is a lot of fun. And if you like what you see in here, hit that like button and subscribe. And until next time, peace.